So for the expected outcomes of today's lecture, we will be describing only the primary disorders, okay, that leads to thrombosis. And then the second part, that would be next week, that would be the secondary disorders that leads to thrombosis. And then while we're discussing the primary disorders, so we will be discussing as well the laboratory features of those disorders. So let us start with describing what is a thrombosis. So this is a hypercoagulable state. So when you say hypercoagulable state, it means there is higher tendency to develop thrombi or emboli. Okay? So this is not just a single clot, it's an imbalance in the hemostasis process. So the body's, pag sinabi nating hemostasis, that is the body's natural system to stop the bleeding without clotting inappropriately. So when the pro-clotting forces outweigh the anti-coagulant forces, so you will now get thrombus, okay? Or embolus. So pag sinabi nating thrombus, this is a stationary clot. Pag sinabi nating embolus or emboli, plural, ito po yung clot na nagta-travel throughout our circulation. Okay, now, let us differentiate primary into versus your secondary. So pag sinabi natin primary, usually ito yung mga inherited forms of disorders. When you say secondary, ito naman yung mga acquired. Okay? So, let's start with the primary. So these are genetic conditions. If a patient is young and they keep getting clots without obvious injury, okay, so that is a pathological or a sign of a pathological disorder. Okay, again, pag sinabi natin congenital or inherited, you are born with it. The patient is born with it. So usually, it is caused by deficiency or possibly mutation in the coagulation factor. Hindi po sa platelet ang problem natin. Naintindihan? So, ang clue, usually pag primary disorders, the clots often start at an early age. Okay? And this is recurrent. So, halimbawa, factor V Leiden mutation. Ito kasi yung pinaka-common. Factor V. Okay? Factor V common, factor V Leiden mutation. So, ibig sabihin, nagkaroon po tayo ng deficiency sa anticoagulant. Okay? Na factor V. Naintindihan? So, that could probably affect a lot of parts of our secondary hemostasis because as you know, factor V po is a cofactor, correct? A cofactor in the common pathway. Okay? So, pag sinabi naman natin secondary, mas common po ito. These are far more common than the primary types. They are triggered by external factors or they are triggered by underlying diseases rather than a mutation of the gene. Okay, so acquired during a person's lifetime. So often involves complex hemostatic abnormalities. For example, stasis. Ano ba yung stasis? Ibig sabihin, hindi nagmo-move yung blood natin. Okay, stasis. Hindi nagmo-move yung blood natin. Blood is not moving. O kaya naman because of vessel wall injury. Okay? Or because of the changes in the blood composition. But not genetics. Naintindihan? So, ano yung mga common triggers? So halimbawa, kaya ka nagkakaroon ng stasis kasi because of immobility. For example, ang tagal mong na-admit, so you have a long hospital stay, or for example, you have a long haul flight, no, the blood pools in the legs. Hindi nagmo-move yung blood mo kasi you're just immobile, you're not moving. Okay? Or possibly because of surgery. Okay, for example, nagkaroon ng tissue damage, kaya nagkaroon ng activation ng clotting cascade, kaya nagkaroon ng clot. Okay? Pwede rin because of pregnancy. For example, di ba, pag pregnant ang babae, mataas ang estrogen level. So, estrogen actually increases clotting factors. Okay? O kaya may cancer. Some tumors releases procoagulant substances. So, ang ibig ko lang sabihin, sa secondary type, this is because of acquired conditions during our lifetime that increases the risk of developing thrombus or embolus. So, for today, ang pag-uusapan po natin, yung mga primary disorders of thrombosis. But before we move on sa mga primary disorders, start tayo muna sa recall ng mga anticoagulant mechanism na nagko-control sa thrombus formation. If you remember the antithrombin 3, okay? So it is a serine protease inhibitor. Pag sinabi natin serine protease inhibitor, otherwise known as SERPIN. Correct? Ang tinatarget po nito, yung mga clotting factor. Halimbawa, si thrombin. So it binds with thrombin. So as you know, the thrombin is the primary clotting factor that is converting your fibrinogen to fibrin. Correct? Also, your antithrombin targets as well your factor 10A. Correct? So, by itself, kung siya lang, alone, mabagal ang antithrombin. Kaya kailangan niya ng cofactor. Correct? That is your heparin. So, when it binds to heparin, yung activity niya increases by 1,000 times. So this is why heparin is used medically as a fast-acting blood thinner. Next, protein C. So protein C acts as a feedback regulator. So it ensures that once clot starts to form, it doesn't spread too far from the site of the injury. So paano ba na-activate natin ang protein C, which is a vitamin K-dependent glycoprotein? Okay, so remember, kakailanganin natin yung thrombin and thrombomodulin. So thrombin activates protein C with a cofactor, which is the thrombomodulin. So together with your EPRC, diba, there will be an activated protein C or your APC. With the help of the cofactor protein S, it will inactivate factor 5 and factor 8. Correct? So, ibig pong sabihin, it can control the clotting process by inactivating the cofactors of the common pathway, which is your factor 5, and also intrinsic pathway, which is your factor 8. So in fibrinolysis, it also helps clear away clots by neutralizing inhibitors of plasminogen activator. So particularly your PI1. Naalala pa ba yun? Okay, making it easier for the body to dissolve your fibrin. And then of course, we have the plasmin. So while yung antithrombin tsaka yung protein C, they focus on stopping the clot from forming. Ang plasmin naman, it is capable of dissolving the clot that have already formed. So that starts as an inactive precursor called plasminogen. If you remember, ina-activate to ng TPA. Ano yung TPA? Tissue plasminogen activator. So in the fibrinolysis, the plasmin will act as parang nag-i-slice ng fibrin mesh, no, of clot into smaller pieces called FDPs or the fibrin degradation product. Kung naaalala nyo si D-dimer, isa yon sa mga FDPs, well-known na FDPs. Okay? So, yun ang indication pag may nakitang D-dimer na nagkaroon ng recent clot formation yung patient. Alright? So, let's start with the first primary disorder. So, that is antithrombin 3 deficiency. Again, pag sinabi natin primary disorder, these are usually congenital and deficiency kadalasan ng mga clotting factors. So pag sinabi natin antithrombin 3 deficiency, okay, deficient sa antithrombin 3. Because antithrombin 3 is the kinoconsider natin siya na break, diba, ng coagulation system. So bakit siya naging break? Kasi nga po, siya yung nag-bind kay thrombin para mag-form ang fibrin from fibrinogen. So here, it can be quantitative. The deficiency can be quantitative. Ibig sabihin ng quantitative, you don't produce enough antithrombin 3. It can also be qualitative. Ibig sabihin, you're producing enough, but the protein is not working correctly. Okay? So it can be quantitative, kulang, or qualitative, meaning there is a problem in the function. So ano nga ulit ang normal function nito? Ini-inhibit niya not only thrombin, but factor 10, factor 11, 12, and 9. So here, no, it also inhibits your plasmin, okay, and protein C. So naaalala nyo si plasmin tsaka si protein C na discuss natin kanina, mga anticoagulant yon, di po ba? However, ang primary role ng antithrombin 3 is stopping the thrombin so that hindi tayo mag-lead sa overwhelming na clot formation. Correct? So, autosomal dominant po ito ha. Pag sinabi natin autosomal dominant, kailangan mo lang ng isang gene na ma-inherit from one parent and posibleng magkaroon ka na nito. Naintindihan? So, ibig pong sabihin, kung every generation ang pag-uusapan natin of your family, kung autosomal dominant to, every generation may lalabas at lalabas na ganitong case. Understood? So patient typically shows symptoms before 35 years old, the manifestation before 35 years old. Ano ba yung mga risk? Okay? Ano ba yung mga manifestation nito? So lower extremity thrombophlebitis. Anong ibig sabihin ng thrombophlebitis? There are clots or presence of clots in the leg veins. Okay? Pulmonary embolism or your PE. So this is dangerous part where the leg clot breaks off and it travels to the lungs. So yung na-form natin na clot sa leg, magta-travel na papunta sa lungs. Okay? So, I repeat, leg clot breaks from the vein of the leg and it now travels to the lungs. So that's called PE or pulmonary embolism. So paano ba natin to dinadiagnose sa laboratory? Okay? So we can look into the immunologic level. Ibig sabihin, yung count. So, this measures the amount of the antithrombin 3 protein that is present. So, ano yung mga ginagamit nating method? You can do radioimmunodiffusion or radioimmunoassay. Again, ginagamit natin tong screening for quantitative deficiency. Okay? And then, we can also look into the functional level. Ibig sabihin, yung activity ng clotting factor. So, mas important, no? This is often considered more important because it measures how well your antithrombin 3 actually inhibits thrombin, no, in the lab setting. So, ang normal range natin dyan would be 80 to 125%. So, pag moderate risk, 50 to 60%. So, if the activity drops to this level, ibig sabihin, the risk of spontaneous clot may appear. Clear? And then, if we're going to measure it, it is better to measure it in serum than in plasma. Clear? Okay, next. Another primary disorder is your protein C deficiency. So again, protein C is a vitamin K dependent factor. Hypercoagulable disorder pa rin to, primary, ibig sabihin, inherited pa rin siya. Okay, so there are two types of protein C deficiency, the type 1 and the type 2. Yung type 1, quanti. Yung type 2, quali. Kasi again, pag sinabi natin quantitative, we're measuring the amount, right? You're not making enough protein C. So, ibig pong sabihin, okay, both the antigen, which is the physical protein, and the functional activity are low. In type 2, which is qualitative, you have a normal amount of protein C that is circulating in the blood, but it doesn't work. So, ibig sabihin, yung functional activity mababa. Pag type 1, deficient na nga, pati yung activity affected. Sa type 2, you have normal amount, but the functional activity is low. So, genetic pa rin ito ha. Ibig sabihin, inherited pa rin po siya. Similar with antithrombin 3, it is autosomal dominant. So, for the symptoms, they appear earlier than the antithrombin 3 deficiency, which is usually 30 years old. Now, for the manifestation, may recurrent thrombophlebitis. So, ano ba yung thrombophlebitis ulit? Meron kang clot formation, right? Sa leg part. Correct? So, pag sinabi nating recurrent, ibig sabihin, pati sa superficial area or superficial vein, okay, and even in the deep vein, nagfo-form ka ng thrombophlebitis. So again, may pulmonary emboli. So yung clot na na-form sa superficial and deep vein, nagta-travel papunta sa lungs. Okay? So, a severe clinical complication, okay, may occur when this happen. So for the testing, no, laboratory feature, pina-perform parehas immunologic tsaka functional assays. So, ang normal level, okay, puntahan muna natin yung sa functional, okay, 70 to 120. Okay? So, 70 to 120. So, ano ba yung effect ng warfarin? Okay? Protein C level will be naturally low sa mga patient na nagtitake ng warfarin or yung tinatawag natin Coumadin. Bakit? Because warfarin, it blocks vitamin K. Diba? Ano ba ang protein C? It is a vitamin K dependent coagulation factor. So, ibig sabihin, the warfarin, no, can affect the test which is for protein C. So, kailangan nating i-watch out kung nagtitake or kailangan nating i-note kung nagtitake si patient ng warfarin before measuring the functional, no, and even the immunologic level of protein C. Okay? Next, we have the protein S. Okay, protein S deficiency. Kung naaalala ninyo, si protein S, siya ang cofactor ng protein C. Remember? So, the symptoms, okay, identical po ito sa antithrombin 3 at saka sa protein C. Okay? Because yung manifestation is the same. So, ibig sabihin, recurrent ang venous thrombosis. Okay? Ibig sabihin, recurrent yung thrombophlebitis. Okay? And then, meron ding manifestation ng, may manifestation din ng pulmonary emboli. Okay? Ngayon, so, for the immunologic protein S or immunologic level of protein S, it can drop to 30 to 60%. Okay? So again, 30 to 60% ang indication na meron ng protein S deficiency. Okay? So for the protein S laboratory feature, so if you remember the protein S, it exists in our system as a free and bound. Diba? 40% of the protein S are free, 60% of the protein S are bound. So, yung ibig sabihin, yung protein S na free, ito yung active na tumutulong kay protein C. Yung bound naman, ito po yung nakabind sa complement, sa C4b. Di po ba? So, ito yung tinatawag nating inactive forms. Ibig sabihin, it is not associated to the anticoagulation. So, when measuring the protein S, the laboratory need to distinguish between bound and free protein S. So, because only the protein S na free is functional, a patient might have a normal total protein S level but still be at risk for clot if their free protein S is too low. Okay? So again, ang dapat na i-measure lang natin ay yung free. Understood? So kailangan yung bound form ma-remove natin or accounted for to get the accurate functional reading. Okay? So again, yung free lang yung mini-measure natin. Understood? So similar with your protein C, warfarin can also affect the level kasi nga ang protein S is still also a vitamin K dependent patient. Therefore, the patients who are taking warfarin will show low level of protein S. So, mahirap mag-diagnose ng primary deficiency kapag ka actively nagtitake yung patient ng mga vitamin K antagonist. Okay? So, we will continue our discussion next week. So, with the fibrinolytic system, inuna ko lang muna yung tatlong deficiencies natin. And then, we'll proceed with other primary disorder and the secondary disorder next week. Okay, so do you have any question or clarification?